behalf of the firm Wigwe and Partners, I warmly welcome you to this webinar for female founders and female business leaders, themed Accelerating Female-Owned Startups, Challenges, Opportunities, and Legal Considerations. This webinar has been organized in celebration of International Women's Day 2025, and it is aimed at shedding the light on the unique challenges that female founders face when starting their careers. We'll also look at some of the strategies that female founders and business leaders can incorporate into their businesses. As well, we will discuss the global and local opportunities that abound. And finally, we would settle down on the legal considerations that female founders ought to pay attention to, particularly in the area of intellectual property protection. I will not be dissecting these issues by myself this morning. I am joined by a carefully selected panel of experts across the spectrum of stakeholders this morning. We have with us the founder of a fintech startup. We also have an established and experienced business leader. We have with us as well the founder of an accelerator. And finally, we have one of our own, a legal practitioner, who will be addressing each of these issues from their points of view to give us a holistic understanding of the topic this morning. So I will proceed to read their profiles just so that we understand the depth of knowledge that we'll be receiving this morning. I will begin with Ms. Wigwe Abudu. She is the managing partner of AfriGlocal Venture Capital, a VC firm positioned to back pre-seed, seed-staged African-focused fintech and digital infrastructure-enabled startups. She is also the founder of Knight Ventures Accelerator, a platform that connects startups, mentors, and investors with a mission to develop 100 high-growth tech-enabled startups. She brings over 30 years valuable business management, transformation, and investment experience. She is a huge supporter of women entrepreneurs and actively encourages the think bigger mindset of indigenous growing businesses across Africa to position for global opportunities. She has occupied various management and executive positions in organizations such as NatWest Cards UK, HSBC Rail UK, the Financial Services Authority UK, Hairs Alliance Nigeria, and Nexen Business Services. Wigwe is also a serial entrepreneur with established businesses in the agriculture, entertainment, and property development spaces. She co-founded an indigenous family entertainment center called Maxtivity. She is a chartered management accountant, holds a certificate in data analysis, as well as a postgraduate diploma in computer programming. She is a fellow, board member, and current president of the Association of Outsourcing Professionals of Nigeria. She is also a board member of Croxton Property Development and Investment Limited and Sproxil Nigeria. Ms. Wigwe Abudu, you are warmly welcome to our webinar.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Next, we have Tamara Lerner. Tamara Lerner is the co-founder and chief operating officer of Cito, an Angola-based fintech company. She is a visionary entrepreneur and seasoned finance expert, leveraging her expertise in financial operations, strategic planning, and risk management to drive growth and excellence in the international business space. Tamara is also the director of operations at VerisLab, where she directs financial operations to enhance corporate strategy alignment. Embodying a unique combination of financial acumen and technological prowess, Tamara brings a distinctive perspective to the intersection of finance, technology, and innovation. She holds a master's from IESCG Paris and a Master Web3 from Shifai. She is highly skilled in financial analysis, banking relations, ERP systems, IT infrastructure oversight, and she has a proven track record of bridging cultural and operational gaps in global business settings. With a career marked by roles at Google LLC, Casfog, Dell EMC, and Union SGR, Tamara has developed a reputation for driving financial innovation, optimizing operations, and fostering strategic growth for businesses and entrepreneurs to thrive in today's business world. Tamara, we're excited to have you here this morning.
Delighted to. Thank you so much for the intro.
Next, we have an established business leader, Folake Akindele-Coker. As the visionary founder and CEO of Tiffany Amber Nigeria, Folake Akindele launched Nigeria's first ready-to-wear label in 1998, revolutionizing the Nigerian fashion industry. A law graduate with a master's degree in petroleum law, Folake successfully translated her love for different cultures into an iconic African fashion and lifestyle brand with global recognition. Folake has flown the Nigerian flag on all major fashion runways globally, showcasing the excellence of Nigerian craftsmanship on the global stage. Her brand, Tiffany Amber, has attracted all the major national and international media platforms from CNN, BBC, Arise, New York Times, Huffington Post, Vogue, France 24, Al Jazeera, Vanity Fair, and more. In 2013, Folake made history as the first African designer on Forbes' Power Women list, underscoring her influence in global fashion. Folake also made history as the first African designer to showcase for 2 consecutive seasons at the New York Fashion Week. Today, the Tiffany Amber brand has grown into a movement that not only represents Nigeria, but the African voice of global fashion. Ms. Folake Akindele-Coker,
Recording in progress.
we are pleased to welcome you to this webinar. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. And finally, one of our very own, Ms. Chioma Amadi Agoro. Chioma Amadi Agoro is a senior associate at Wigwe and Partners, where she practices in the corporate commercial department. She offers a broad range of corporate and commercial legal advisory services to clients across diverse industries, including capital markets, financial services, energy, and construction. With her extensive experience, Chioma also specializes in corporate secretarial services and advisory, providing expert guidance on organizational governance and regulatory compliance. Chioma is deeply involved in corporate regulatory compliance transactions with a particular focus on corporate governance. Her keen interest and expertise in this area make her a valuable asset to clients seeking to navigate complex corporate landscapes while ensuring adherence to local and international standards. Chioma holds a Master of Laws degree from Liverpool John Moores University. She also holds a postgraduate degree in Community Relations from Pan Atlantic University in Lagos, Nigeria. She is an active member of several professional bodies, including the Nigerian Bar Association, International Bar Association, Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, Maritime Arbitrators Association of Nigeria. Additionally, Chioma holds an oil and gas training certificate from the Rocky Mountain Institute in Denver, Colorado, USA. Ms. Chioma Amadi, you're welcome, and we're excited to hear from you this morning.
Excited too. Thank you, Emma.
Yes, and I am Imaide Young Lawrence. I will be moderating the webinar today. So let's begin. We'll start with Ms. Lerner. Ms. Lerner is the co-founder of a fintech startup based in Angola called Cito. And we want to first address a major challenge that female founders often experience, which is bias. Bias is often the elephant in the room when a female founder is pitching her idea to investors or seeking to expand her team or seeking to sell her product or service to the market. Now, as co-founder of Cito, I know that you're the other founder is male and you're the female co-founder. When setting out, did you experience bias? And before proceeding, bias often plays out in several aspects, including funding. So as a female co-founder, have you encountered any such bias? If yes, how did you navigate it? If no, what would you recommend as a way forward for female founders that experience such?
Hi, everyone. Yes, definitely. So bias exists, especially when you're raising capital, I would say. And of course, in finance and tech, dominated industries. So, as a female founder, you feel it, for example, in the types of questions you get. I definitely experienced it in that way. When we pitched for Saito, I noticed, for example, that my male counterparts were often asked about how they scale and disrupt, while I got asked generally questions about risk and compliance, as if the assumption was that I'll be less prepared to handle maybe some complexity, right, about scaling and disruptions. So rather than trying to prove that I could fit the idea of a founder, I focused on what we were already doing well. We built basically a strong data story, our customer traction, revenue growth, operational processes, and those spoke for themselves. So when you're trying to present a business as a woman that's executing, bias starts to fade slowly into the background, right? You need to have that data. So people pay attention to the data and results. So that, as a woman, for sure has helped me a lot, getting ready for the hard questions, for the data questions, for the results. Another important shift was choosing definitely the right rooms to be in. And this is a hard one because sometimes it hits our ego as women. Not every investor is going to like it or to get it, and that is fine. But yeah, we focused on Sido and finding partners who understood our vision and that understood as well that there is a woman co-founder in the room and who valued the operational, let's say, rigor and compliance strengths that we brought to the table as women and male co-founders. So for female founders who are dealing with this bias, something that would definitely help you, or at least has helped me in the past, would be one, lead with your data. Performance will always shut down doubt, or at least part of it. Two, I would say choose who gets to be a part of your story. Don't waste your time trying to convince people who won't see the value of what you bring. Or you can always try, I would say 2, 3 times. And if with you as a founder is not working, you can always bring your co-founders to it, but don't waste your energy and time if it's just not connecting. Sometimes you can't work through it. And three, and very important one, connect with other founders who have been through it. They'll help you avoid mistakes and give you definitely strategies that work. Mostly, of course, on the country bias. Country bias is not the same in different places around the world. So this is really important. If you're going to deploy and chat with investors that are culturally different, sometimes as a woman or even as a man, it's better to connect with other founders that have been through that. So yeah, bias is still definitely out there, but it's something that you can manage strategically. And in doing so, you make it easier for the next group of women coming up behind you.
Well said. Thank you, Tamara. So just reiterating what you have said, you said lead with your data. I couldn't agree more. The more found investors see that you have the right outputs, you have your data ready, you have your results, your product is tested and trusted. There's there would be reduced doubt, right? Then you also said choose who will be a part of your story. Of course, even with male founders, not all investors will buy into their idea. So it's important to understand those investors that are aligned with your vision. And then finally connecting with other founders who have scaled through as well. I think those are quite important points. Thank you so much for sharing.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
moving into the accelerator side of things, coming to you, Ms. Abudu. Accelerators and incubators are key for any startup that wants to scale and scale sustainably. And so research shows that of all the capital venture funding across Africa in the past 10 years, less than 5% went to women founders. And this is, not just data that's shown in one place, it's reoccurring data, right? You are in the venture capital space. You have dealt with male founders, you have dealt with female founders. And just to highlight a unique selling point of AfriGlocal, which Ms. Abudu manages, they have a special focus on women-owned and women-led startups. So that is quite commendable. And, Miss Mokwe is a very good choice for this panel. So looking at the funding discrepancy between male-owned startups and female-owned ones, would you say that there is additional difficulty for women founders? And in your experience, what have you discovered to be the reason or the reasons for the funding gap between male-owned startups and female-owned ones?
Thank you so much for that question. And I'll try and be very blunt because from where I'm sitting, I see the fault actually falling on both sides. And when I say both sides, I'm talking about the female founders themselves, not intentionally, but just by the way they're wired, as well as those in the investment space where there is bias as well, but there also needs to be a lot of education. And I'll start with the founders side. Women generally sometimes are afraid to think big, to be audacious in their thinking, and to be audacious in their asking. It is not about not having the wherewithal, the technical capacity, the education. It has nothing to do with that. But when it comes to that point of putting, everything up for, and taking risk, sometimes we find women because we're more, maybe because we're a bit more compassionate and a bit more reserved. Sometimes, not all of us, but a few of us, we don't really, really go for the big ticket. And I'll just stress this case with something that is going on or something I came about just yesterday. And for those of our audiences who are in Nigeria, you may have seen it on social media. There was a little information going around about a lady who happened to be in front of the governor of, I think it was the Akwa Ibom, governor. And this was the evidence of like your elevator pitch. She had a rare opportunity to be in front of someone who could transform her business. And she did well. She brought out her product, just like Tamara was saying, in terms of the results. She came very well prepared. She showcased, she even brought a whole file, which was to show, we didn't see the contents of the file, but I was assumed that was all, to show how she was structured and everything she had done. And then she was asked one particular question, so how much do you need? And you could see from her facial, she was so afraid to ask. And then she made an ask for 2 million naira. And the first thing, when this happened, my husband was I said, why did she ask for 2 million? Why didn't she ask for 20 million? That was an opportunity. And she felt so uncomfortable as though she was not worth asking for more. So what I'm trying to say is the audacity to think big, the audacity to really go out there if you are sure of yourself. That's on the side of the woman. But it is true, the statistics do show that, very little capital goes to the woman. That is really because there is a bias sometimes at the front stage, because there is that subtle think that the things women founders are doing are quote unquote soft, anything to do with lifestyle, anything to do with fashion or food. They're considered soft in quote, and they're not always seen to be money earners. Which isn't so. Money is the same color regardless of where they're coming from. But there really needs to be, just like Tamara said, the facts showcase, the routes to earnings, the routes to revenue, and the routes to profitability to be put forward to showcase that there is a business case behind this. But then again, generally, women sometimes are a little bit bound by their culture barriers. We're more concerned with managing the home sometimes. And it really is a balancing act. And to be honest, when it comes to investment, it isn't always only about putting the facts, it's about your network. And women need to be able to find good networks. Sometimes the reality and sometimes the unfortunate reality is that the decisions are made not really at the center stages. The decisions are made behind the scenes in small groups and in clubs and the rest of them. And women, by nature of their daily routines, may not be able to forge such networks to be able to be in the face of those decision makers at the right times. So some of the issues, not having the right kind of networks. We do have our networks, but they're more on the social side. We need those networks that can really transform our businesses and plummet it to the right stage. We need to be able to think big in terms of our audaciousness and our risk taking. We need to have support networks that would deal with some of those other aspects of our lives so that we can actually pursue some of those visions and dreams that we have. And like I did say, connect yourself with right partners and right networks and within the whole value chain that can actually transform us. And hopefully have women at the investor stage, and that's one of my mantras here, who would be able to identify business, even if it is led by women, and be able to support such visions and get them funded properly.
Said you said quite a number of things, and the first thing you've said is the mindset shifts, which I think is so critical for us women. Many times we tend to underplay ourselves, thinking, oh, maybe the man deserves it more than I do. But if you have value, it's important to project it and to speak up for what you're worth, similar to the example that you gave earlier. So I do hope and trust that the women on this call are taking notes, and after today we'll do an internal evaluation to understand, the value they bring to the table. Thank you very much, Ms. Abudu. We'll be moving now to Falake Akindele Koka, just to confirm that she's still with us. Miss.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay, yes, thank you. So we'll move a little bit from tech to fashion. Now, Tiffany Amber is a household name in the fashion industry in Nigeria and globally. And despite the struggles of doing business, your fashion brand has withstood the test of time. And I know that this year in November, your brand will turn 27. That is quite a big deal. So congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Yes. So you understand the dynamics of business, and you understand the dynamics of businesses evolving. So for women entrepreneurs, looking at the fashion industry and even other industries where trends change quickly, how do you ensure that your business remains agile and adapts to market shifts while maintaining legal and financial protection?
I think the fashion business is quite a peculiar one in the sense that it's a business that you have to throw a lot of money out the window. You have then pray that it lands in the right place so it can walk back through your door. It is a business that if you look at all the international designers globally, you'd hear at some point or the other they went bankrupt, and the ones that have remained in business till date are the ones that have been able to have a good succession plan, one, a good archives, two, and most importantly, they had one hand on their customers and the other hand on their products. And in Tiffany Amber, I have been very, very deliberate and focused on being very business-minded about how we move forward with the business so we can remain standing and tall. We year in, year out, one of the ways we've been able to stay in the market and thrive in the market is we keep reinventing ourselves so we can adapt to the market, in the sense that when you look at as a fashion, when you're in the business of fashion or anything creative, you have to be in the time. You have to know what the culture is. You need to be careful not to be out of touch with what's going on. You have to watch television, even junk television. You have to read. You have to know what's going on around you, know what the mindset of your consumers are, know when you have to extend beyond your present customers. I mean, if you look at a brand, a global brand like, for example, Balenciaga, when the designer, the lead designer, the founder of Balenciaga created the brand, they, what, I'm sure she'll turn in her grave now if she sees what the brand is producing, because at the end of the day, it's such a departure from what she set up to what there is now. However, the evolution of the brand is probably, well, not probably, it's because they have monitored the market and seen how to adapt to it in a way that would keep their business still going on. So in Tiffany Amber, we reinvent ourselves over and over again without changing the DNA of the brand. We are more growth orientated than profit orientated at the moment, because if you run a fashion business and you want it to stand the test of time, which I do, I believe, I was once asked if with Gucci has been around for 100 and something years, Louis Vuitton 300 and something years, and so on and so forth. That where do I see Tiffany Amber in the next 50 years? I said, I told the interviewer that in the next 300 years or 500 years, someone like you will be sitting with someone like me and saying Tiffany Amber has been around for 500 years. And so basically, I'm working towards a very long-term goal. I'm working towards a brand that will stand the test of time. So for that reason, we focus on growth more than profit, because we know that to actually start making a huge profit that would be able to say that we can stand and back, I mean, and be very proud of, we need to scale up significantly. We need to, I mean, people will say scale up. How much more do you want to scale up? I mean, I think if on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I probably need to scale up 12, because the Nigerian fashion industry is not very accommodating to producing large scale, because we're not really skilled on mass production. Production in Nigeria is veered towards more bespoke than large scale manufacturing. So I'm not sure if I'm still in line with the question you asked me, but it is it is a long-term, it's a very long journey for us, and it's a journey that we've invested so much in regarding growth, and to be agile and be financially stable at the same time. We've grown organically. We don't have any debts, but we still have a very long way to go.
Thank you. Yes, you have answered the question. Keep reinventing yourself without changing your core, right? Monitoring the markets, being in tune with the times. I think so. The need to keep adapting when you see the trends have changed today, being able to adapt without changing the core of who you are. So I think that that's an important point for for women founders and business leaders to take note of. Thank you very much, Miss Akindele Kuka. So we're moving into the legal aspect now. Legal is a very important aspect in running a business. And I'll be moving to Miss Chioma Amadi Agoro. You are a legal practitioner with many years of legal practice behind you, and I'm sure you've seen it all with business, owners and individuals who come to you and say they want to start their businesses. And, some of them, might already have an idea of how they want it to run. And But that's on the business side. So they're coming to you with a need to understand the legal requirements. So, what would you say, in your experience, are the most common legal pitfalls female founders and entrepreneurs encounter when starting and growing their businesses? And what legal structures or strategies do you recommend to ensure long term success and protection?
Okay, thank you very much, Emma. Just to correct that, we are still saying it. I haven't seen it all. It's a practice, so we keep learning. Let me see how to address this approach or make this approach using practical examples based on my experience. We all know that a business commences through an idea before it grows into a full-fledged venture. The journey, of course, requires multiple processes and procedures. And just like a puzzle, if you take out a piece, a lot of things are being affected. And so, to give a very practical example, right? Let me say, if I intend to, let's say I nurture an idea to start a business, and on top of my head, I'm thinking of what business, and say a shoe business comes up for me to manufacture a shoe. The first thing that comes to my mind is to probably meet 5 friends, and out of the 5 friends, two shows interest in the business. And what happens is that we have conversations on how we want to, commence the business. And then we think of probably meeting a manufacturer, say in China or in Italy, to produce the shoe. And so let's say the gap I want to fill is having end users that do not have to think about the size of a shoe. So you just walk into a shop and get a shoe, and it's adjustable to meet any of your size. And so we have a meeting with this offshore entity, and the offshore company, manufacturer says to us that, look, we need to create a sample. Remember, I got the idea. I probably might not have the monies to create the sample. And I meet one of my partners, and the partner says to me, one of them says to me that, okay, you know what, I would provide the monies for the sample. You would realize that what has happened here is that we've gone so deep into the business. However, something very fundamental is missing, and that's what happens if you find 8 founders or 10 founders, only 8 or only 2 would have done the needful. And so the very, very fundamental thing that is missing here is that they failed to get a lawyer from the beginning, and that's what you find. And so usually when the founders come to us, what happens is that they've gone so deep and a lot of things are missing. So taking you back to the scenario, if they had gotten a lawyer from the very start, the lawyer would have advised on the need to incorporate a company. The lawyer would have also advised on the type of structure, whether it's a sole proprietorship or a limited partnership or a company limited by shares or guarantee. Most companies in Nigeria usually go for companies limited by shares, and there are a whole lot you can get from a limited partnership, right? The lawyer would have advised on the intellectual property that would have been in play. I came up with the idea, and he would have advised on whether it's a trademark or a patent that comes into play. Remember, there were conversations with partners. The lawyer would have advised on founders' agreements, pre-contracts that would have been entered. Founders' agreements such as the shareholders' agreement, investors' agreement, a joint venture agreement, and what have you. There would have been situations where the founders did not have enough capital to, move the business to the next step. And so they might be looking at debt financing or looking at an angel investor to give in funds, and there are documentations that needs to be in play when it comes to this. And the lawyers would have advised on what type of contracts that would have been in play, whether it's an investor's investment contract or a convertible notes, depending on the situation. The lawyer would also have advised on the regulatory compliance that would have been in play as well. So I'm thinking that if it's for a fintech company, the lawyer would advise based on the CBN and the SEC Act and what have you, right? The lawyer would also have advised them the tax implications and the regulatory and the tax regime that sort of governs that particular transaction. So these and many more are the things that we get to see when we have founders come to us and we see that a lot of things have been missing, and we have to now start, amending things rather than us coming in from the preventive side of the game. We would start fixing and saying, oh, you shouldn't have used this type of structure. You should have done this and you should have done that. And just like Tamara had earlier said, already there are external factors that are beyond the control of female-led founders. A quick and dirty review from the Harvard Business Review had said that only 1 out of 5 female-led founders would find capital being given to them, and out of that capital, you find a very low capital but with very high interest, and this is just beyond their control. So knowing that this issue exists, we would always advise founders to look, why don't you see how you can, especially female founders, why don't you see how you can avoid some of these pitfalls, that is within your control? And these are the things we get to see all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's more of a case of putting the cart before the horse.
Absolutely.
So they would have gone in too deep before they realize that, oh, we need a lawyer.
Absolutely.
So it's important to start to set their priorities right.
As a matter of fact, as soon as you nurture the idea, it is very important that you get in a lawyer from the beginning. Let the lawyer know that you're about to talk to friends. Let the lawyer know that you're about to talk to your partners to advise you on what to do, how to structure your equity, the distribution that goes into play, and all of that. Thank you.
Totally agree. Thank you so much, Ms. Amadiagoro. So we'll go back to Ms. Lerner. Ms. Amadiagoro mentioned regulatory requirements as a key factor when starting out. Ms. Lerner, you are a professional who has worked across several jurisdictions. And, it's one thing to sort through the many laws and the many policies that affect your business in your home base. It's another thing where your business is cross-border and you're having to deal with laws from a separate jurisdiction. So it's sometimes a puzzle having to wrap your head around the many laws cross-border. So as a professional who has worked across several jurisdictions and dealt with differing legal and compliance requirements for running a startup, how have you navigated new regulatory landscapes?
Okay, this is a great question and one that mostly founders get very cocky with. So when we first launched Saito, we thought we had a solid understanding, right, of compliance and regulation. We have all of the 3 co-founders worked in big tech companies and in finance. And when you work in finance mostly, you get across the compliance sector, you work on no, I wouldn't say daily, but on a weekly basis with the team and legals as well. So you think you have a good image of, right? But from the moment we started our business in Angola, of course, we started, as you mentioned, working with external factors like other countries and transactions and finance and banks, we realized that effectively the regulatory landscape is complex, it's fragmented, and again, can vary dramatically from one country to the next, right? So at first we made the mistake, and I'm not afraid to say that because I think it's very important to put a clear image on how startups work, thinking that we could figure things out as we went. We assumed that, having a good internal compliance structure was enough. And of course, as you may know, it wasn't. We quickly learned, right, that without local expertise, even the best frameworks can fall short. And I want to make a quick point on this. Today we have AI, and a lot of us will probably go and ask some very basic questions. We have the research function on ChatGPT, we have Claude, we can ask on a particular country, And we think sometimes that having done the long pages, like a long research from AI, can be enough. It's not, for sure, it's not, right? For example, the requirements around data, data localization that we underestimate, and licensing processes that took months longer because we hadn't built local relationships early enough, could have been definitely solved with local expertise and teams that worked on international background laws. It definitely slows us down, not because we weren't capable, but because we underestimated the, let's say, specific and the nuance of each market. So I would definitely say that this experience, right, has reshaped how we operate today. And if ever I were to start a new business, compliance is definitely, not an afterthought or a box to tick. I started finance and mainly work in tech, and sadly, most of us think of compliance as that, like a box to tick, just a few documents. You have a few documents to sign from a team, and that's it. It's not. It's part of the strategy from day one. So before we enter a market, now we map out the regulatory landscape, we engage with local legal and compliance advisors. We definitely factor regulation into our product development. This is really important too. And we try always to build a direct relationship with regulators. So yeah, basically not just learning from this path of building my own startup, but it's also key to learn from, again, others who have already done it. And if you build it in a specific country, it's a really good idea to connect with startups and not just the regulatory teams, but people who have already built a similar product in the area or just have built a startup in there. So the key actions for founders that are expanding into new markets, I would say, one, do the regulatory research early, deep, not just surface level, ChatGPT or Claude. Two, engage with local experts before you need them. And I'm talking from experience here. Three, I would say build flexibility into your product and operations from day one, because you might need it on adapting your product to the market and new regulations. Point number 4, prioritize building that regulator relationship early. It's worth the time, and it's worth doing it before having the product ready. If not, it will, add delay. 5, and maybe as an extra point here, talk to other founders and learn from their experience on that country or that area. And 6, and most importantly, and the last one, expect to make mistakes, but have the system to adapt and recover fast.
Thank you. So just to reiterate what you have said, you said leverage local expertise and leverage it early, map out the regulatory landscape before setting out, and that's tied to what Ms. Amadiagoro has said about seeking early career guidance, and then connect with existing startups. One thing people say is good to learn from experience, but it's good to learn from other people's experience. You don't have to
Sure.
make the mistake yourself, right? So I think that's key. Thank you very
Right.
much.
Please.
Yes. So we have discussed funding as a major challenge that female founders encounter when setting out. But I would like to know what other, and I'm coming to Ms. Abudu now, I would like to know what other hurdles female founders and business leaders often encounter when building and scaling. So, Ms. Abudu, what would you say are some of those other hurdles, and what recommendations would you make for female founders to address such hurdles?
Okay, well, when we're talking about business generally, sometimes business is merciless, regardless of the gender, whether you're female or male. There are critical things that need to be ticked off to make sure you are on the path to having a business that will outlive you, so to speak. But But yes, sometimes it hits females a little bit even more in certain cases. And, as founders, naively, sometimes the thought that you can just throw money at any problem is normally the initial strategy. And then you very quickly find that sometimes the problem is not even about capital. That's not to say capital is not important, but there are certain other critical needs that a business needs to address. And then obviously complemented with the right kind of capital, and the timing of the capital is also very important. And one of the main things really is, for founders, particularly women, to think of the business not just a business, but a sustainable business. And when we're talking about sustainability, there's so many things that come into play. You're building a business that should be able to stand on itself. It should get to a point of being self-sufficient. It shouldn't be reliant on being able to breathe from external sources. So you really need to build a business that has sustainable revenue streams. And that goes beyond just having a great idea, because even that great idea, if you think you're the only one who has it, I guarantee you there are people also thinking about that idea and probably even going further with it. So you really need to think sustainability from day one. What kind of revenue streams would continually breathe the blood for the business, and that really is about looking about your relevance on the market, and what we try and preach at at the early stage, because we at the accelerator we work with businesses at the early stage, which are pre-seed, seed stage, is your idea might be great, but guess what? You really need to become very product market fit relevant. And it shouldn't just be a buzzword. It should be about you really feeling the pulse of the market, making sure that you're relevant, making sure that you're not just entering the market, you're penetrating the market. And that means that you're building loyalty, you're building a customer base that will be your the cheapest source of financing before you even start looking for financing elsewhere. And if you're not able to convert that value proposition that you have in terms of your product, be it a female-owned business or a male-owned business, then you're on the down trail in terms of what your business is going to or how your business is going to survive. Now, one other key aspect that we find, particularly at early stage businesses who think money is a problem, is that they are ignoring some very near home issues. And that is about the team dynamics, how you select your team, who you're working with, your succession plans, your co-founder relations. I cannot overemphasize that is normally the bane of businesses if they don't, survive. You need to choose a team that aligns with your vision, aligns with your work ethics, understands, the kind of aspirations that you have and how you're going to achieve it. This normally is a volcano about to erupt if it's not addressed, and no amount of money, even if you're so privileged to be able to access funding, can soften the blow in this particular area, particularly for ventures. So team dynamics, it is so, so important. It is intangible, but it speaks volume. You need to make sure that you have the right capacity of people. They are not just burning your capital. They are actually producing, and the productivity is actually being showcased in terms of what is coming out. And then just the relationship. Toxic environment can destroy a great business, regardless of how great the product or the business model is. So these are very, very critical things that we find need to be addressed. And then you can all be singing from the same hymn book when you actually go out looking for funding, which would be a little bit down the line. As investors, these are some of the things that we really look out for. It goes beyond just having a great PowerPoint. We want to see, what's how are the team relating to each other? Are they really, really working together as a team? Because the risk of not having a unified team is so much greater, because that means if and you would have heard investors saying they invest in people, not really just the idea, because they know the challenges are going to come. When the challenges come, how do they, come together to address it? How do they pivot? How do they come up with new solutions? Regardless, it's never an easy route. So we want to try and make sure that the team dynamics showcases that confidence that the business would be able to work together. And one other, very critical aspect beyond funding that I find is, and this is also for women. Sometimes we think we're such Hercules, we could do everything ourselves. Yes, women are kind of octopuses. We can balance a lot of things, but when you're building a business, you need to, especially if you're the female founder, you need to be working on the business, not in the business. And it takes a deliberate mindset to be able to remove yourself, to have that helicopter view, to be able to see beyond just the regular day-to-day, because you can get your head buried under the table on the regular day-to-day aspects because you think you're the only one who can do it. And you probably don't want to engage, or you're very suspicious about engaging experts because you think, oh, I could do a better job at it. But sometimes you do need to rise above those nitty-gritty aspects and become the leader, become the pilot, and rise above and be able to see the opportunities that are coming at you. Because that is normally what the difference is between a business that is able to scale very quickly because they're in the right place at the right time. So for women, sometimes we need to work on the business rather than in the business, and be able to gather, experts who will be, you could actually, show other people what they need to do while you actually just manage the business. So these are very critical aspects that businesses in general need to think of. But as female founders or female led businesses need to pay even more attention to as we go further.
Two critical things you've mentioned. One, you said sustainability, which I couldn't agree with more, which is the next question actually to Ms. Akindele Koka. Women need to focus on building sustainable brands. And you mentioned understanding team dynamics and understanding your succession plans. And I think one thing you also said, which I myself will be taking away, is working on the business and not in the business. I think that is a good mindset shift to have as a leader. Thank you so much. So still speaking on sustainability, Ms. Akindele Koka, let's talk sustainability. So sustainability is key for businesses, especially businesses that are thinking long term. And we see sustainability as both a business concept and a corporate governance principle. So in the fashion industry, sustainability is an important component because designers have to ensure that they are adopting environmentally and socially responsible practices. So practices that are eco-friendly and that are aimed at reducing waste. Because research shows that the fashion industry is the second largest consumer of water. And so as a fashion leader, as you're building your fashion brand, you're thinking, how best can I make my business sustainable in business practices? And then moving into the governance side of things, you're also thinking about, as you mentioned earlier, you want the brand to remain, in 500 years, they're referring to your brand. So at the business side of things and at the governance side of things, what would you say to female founders to build sustainable practices into their brands early on and throughout the life cycle of their business?
Building a sustainable business from the onset is fortunately for us in Africa, we are quite sustainable in our practices by virtue of the lack in the industry, in the issues that will cause a business not to be sustainable. We don't really have that in Nigeria. However, there are little things that we can do. That I'm going to use Tiffany Amber as an example. We try our best, for example, to be as paperless as possible. We fabrication, nothing goes to waste. If it's not reused one way or the other and by the brand, we ship it off to the north where some young girls use it to make blankets. They dismantle the threads completely and recreate it into something else to make the blankets with it. So being sustainable is in terms of water. Running water is a luxury for on the continent. So I think the issues of water being a problem is for example, water being a problem is something more in the West than on this continent. And luckily for us as well, we are starting to look heavily inwards for the development of our own industry, especially textile. For example, the other day I went to the fashion souk, and I was, I thought I make a lot. My range of handbags for Tiffany Amber is made from Ashoki, and I didn't. So from time to time I do go out there to see what's going on in the industry, and I was so pleasantly surprised to see that nearly every fashion store had Ashoki in there, one way or the other, for dresses, for accessories, for everything. It was so big. And I thought to myself that if we continue like this, looking inward for the industry, this would not only make us sustainable environmentally, because producing Ashoki is it's very environmentally friendly. It would also grow the industry so much because, as we know, the textile industry suffered a heart attack many years ago in Nigeria, and now we need to resuscitate it. And resuscitating it, it's not going to be an easy task. But when there's demand for any of these products, like I'm sure the demand for Ashoke today is probably 500% more than what it was, say 5-10 years ago. So really, it's about, for me, to round that up, it's about looking inward, avoiding waste at all cost on every single level, whether it's physically or otherwise, and developing a practice that is sustainable for the business at the same time that can be maintained over a long period of time. So does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, Ms. Akindele Kuka. Avoid waste on every level. Thank you. So moving to Ms. Lerner, taking a shift from building sustainable brands and building sustainable businesses that can outlive even their founders. Let's talk leadership. Aside being the co-founder at Saito, you are also the chief operations officer at the startup. So that's the critical leadership position. So in your opinion, how can we increase the representation of women in leadership roles within startup ecosystems?
Okay, that is a very good question and something that I've been discussing a lot lately with a lot of other co-founders. So let's start by a question. When I say the word leadership, honestly, what is the first image that comes to mind? Even though a lot of people would like to say women, the truth is, for a lot of people, it's probably a man in a suit, serious confidence stance. And for a long time, to be honest, it was for me too. I grew up with 3 brothers, a father who had a very strong influence in me, and even my first bosses were men who I, to this day respect deeply and inspired me a lot. They taught me how to lead with discipline, logic, and resilience. Now, the leadership styles definitely shaped how I approach my work today. I am still tough, I am direct, and I'm very results driven. And that has worked for me, to be completely honest, in finance and tech industry, where, of course, those traits are often rewarded. Now, what took me much longer to realize was that I was carrying a bias of my own. I think I bought into the idea that leadership, right, had to look like what I had always seen, men leading a certain way. And because of that, I didn't initially, for example, appreciate other styles of leadership, especially from other women founders who led, for example, differently than me. It took time, it took reflection to actually understand that, to realize that, my own bias was limiting how I saw leadership, and it was limiting as well how I understood representation. Now, once I came through that, things changed. I started to see that leadership isn't one-dimensional. You can lead with emotional intelligence, with empathy, with flexibility, and it's just as valid and sometimes even more effective, depending on the sector, and more specifically into complex environment like startups, where people, are your greatest asset, to be empathetic and transparent. Now, why is this core to increasing women representation in leadership? I think the first point is we have to expand into what leadership looks like. Representation is not just about getting more women into decision-making roles. It's about making space for different leadership styles to be recognized, respected, and valued once they're there. And as a second point, I'd like to mention something that a lot of people feel a little uncomfortable about, but honestly, I think all women think about, which is the family factor. I see a lot of women holding back from leadership roles, mainly in Africa, because of the fact of building a business, and having to choose between the business and the family. When I was scaling Saito, I thought as well, I have a life partner, and the thing about building eventually a family came to my mind. And, it's a lot. It's not impossible, but it is a lot for one person to think about. But the thing, when you're a leader, it's not about choosing, it's about adapting. And what I've learned about the leadership roles that I had is that a startup, ecosystem more broadly, you need to make space for that reality as a woman. You need to be flexible and empathetic, transparent, and it's key for a leadership role. So when we normalize this, we will build ecosystems and culture that respect different life stages, and that representation improves because it's not just about talking about it. It's because we're making it possible to be both a leader and eventually a mother. Now, the third point that I think it's very important to mention is not just about conversation. It's about action and how we move forward. If we want to see more women in leadership roles, in startups, it's not just about this type of conversations. We have to act. And that is into very specific actions. So basically, hiring, networking, and the visibility. When teams are small, and I can speak for myself, we are a team of 3 people, and we are probably going to look for hires this year. Every hire counts. We need to bring women into decision-making roles early on as co-founders, as advisors, and as executives. Now, when we're hiring, remember that bias, because it's really important, right? We're having interviews with people, with women, and sometimes our bias of men leadership gets in the way. And we need to remember, what about this type of new leadership that I'm looking for, maybe in this woman? I'm not used to it, but maybe I should try. Now, this is really important. Networking. We tend to hire and promote from people we already know. So if your network is not including women, it's time to expand it. And in terms of visibility, the more women we see leading, and I know this seems very evident, right? The more normal it becomes. This visibility will create networking and more possibilities, specifically for younger founders who are still trying to figure out what leadership looks like. So on that point, I'm very thankful that we're having this kind of panels with exceptional women, bringing this key highlights for women who are looking forward to build a startup or are in the way. So the bottom line, if we're serious about increasing women representation, specifically in Africa's startup space, redefine what leadership looks like, remove the barriers around family and life phases by normalizing this flexibility, be proactive about hiring, promoting, and investing into women from the start, and understand, and I cannot emphasize this enough, understand and challenge our own biases, the ones that makes us favor one leadership style over another. Thank you.
Amara, thank you. To just emphasize, you said to normalize flexibility, understanding the unique role that a woman plays, not just as a leader, but as a mother as well. So that's key. And letting each individual project with their unique leadership style. So making room for the different kinds of leadership styles. So that is key. Thank you very much. So we're gradually rounding up, and I'd move to Ms. Abudu. Let's talk about the opportunities that exist and that are bound for female founders and business leaders in Nigeria, Africa, and globally. You are an accelerator, you have several businesses, some are stationed in the US, some here in Nigeria. So in your experience, what opportunities do you think are underexplored for female founders and business leaders, both in Africa and globally?
Okay, so somehow I think I'll turn the question a little bit on its head, because if it's to list out or to bullet opportunities, I don't think there's any sheet of paper that can contain opportunities that are out there. Is it handshakes with business partners offshore? AfriGlocal, a venture capital fund, is actually focused on local perceptions, local entrepreneurs who are looking to have a global presence, but emphasizing their local innovation. So what I'm just trying to say is opportunities are abound. But what is very, very important, particularly for women, and I'm really going to direct these kind of approaches that I think women should imbibe, is for you to be in the place of not just knowing about an opportunity, but acting on it. Women need to ask questions. And what I really mean by asking questions is, yes, you may even need to drop that toga of you know it all. You need to become a little bit more vulnerable and ask questions. I have seen how in a place of very influential people, no questions are asked by a set of people, and one person takes that step further and then just keeps asking the questions. Those questions demand an answer. It demands a link. It demands a meeting to be set up. And that is how opportunities come. When you ask questions, obviously, well thought out questions with the purpose of getting, something out of it, you put yourself out there. You are presenting yourself as being ready to, to receive the information and take action. And these questions not only put you in a stage of being more exposed in terms of your knowledge, in terms of networks, like we've continually said here, you're able to follow through. I have been in a situation where the state of Washington, D.C. is actually saying, look, we need startups. We know, Nigeria is full of innovation. We want you to come and teach us innovation. And yeah, I almost laughed. I was like, sometimes the way we see innovation comes from lack. It is when you lack something that you become innovative with the resources that you have, and then you come up with something that's probably even better than the regular status quo. Now, that was because we were in a particular place. I was talking about, African fintech businesses, and just asking, this has actually evolved into an opportunity for, to handshake local enterprises with offshore enterprises in terms of their global expansion and the rest. So asking is very, very critical, particularly for women. Don't be too reserved, and don't feel you know everything about it, because everyone is still learning, and new opportunities are coming up by the second. One thing that's also very important that women need to leverage on in terms of opportunity sourcing is infuse the use of technology for information sharing and efficiency very, very quickly into your operations. You're able to assimilate more information. You're able to respond very quickly. You're able to archive information and retrieve it very quickly, because sometimes when opportunities come, it doesn't give you the luxury of time. It doesn't give you the luxury of, totally, putting things together. You need to respond almost immediately. So what I'm just trying to say is, I won't really list out opportunities, but I'm trying to showcase how you can put yourself in the position to take advantage of opportunities when they do arise. Technology is extremely important. Sometimes some people are very quick to adapt it. For others, it could be a little bit of a problem, but it's very key if you want to be global, if you want to scale, and if you actually want to make sure that you are meeting the right people at the right times. It presents a very quick, it shortens the gap or the hurdles and the challenges that you normally have when you're trying to go with the traditional way. Now, for local businesses, particularly women businesses, what I would also encourage is a bit of collaboration. Collaboration really, really helps in terms of exposure, in terms of overcoming hurdles or ticking checklists that you on your own may not really be able to do. Sometimes the woman factor, and I have to be very honest, sometimes we don't always gel together, but we need to overcome that in terms of, the bigger picture that we're all trying to see. Collaboration or co-opetition, as they like to say, is very important. The more women are able to collaborate, the better we're able to go for big ticket opportunities, whether it is something that one person wouldn't be able to do on their own. Coming together gives you a better chance at actually achieving it. So what I'm just trying to say is, collaborations could happen with local partners. It could happen with international partners, different regions. You're able to showcase your individual expertise in your localities, and together it shows a much more stronger force to be able to address these opportunities. And, all in all, what I'm trying to say is, don't get overwhelmed with your not being able to take all the opportunities. If an opportunity comes and you're only able to, or you only feel you only match 2 out of maybe 10 requirements, apply anyway. Apply anyway. I have been in so many situations where beyond luck, they may actually be looking at some other matrix, putting your best foot forward, but apply. Don't deny yourself even before you get to that point. If applications come up, go for it. Those businesses that are using data and using other matrices may just be able to identify you. So opportunities, like they say, knock, once, they don't come, so many times. So when it is there, make sure that you're ready. You have all your information, to be able to present yourself in a good stead, and be audacious in your thinking and applications generally.
Thank you. So ask questions, leverage technology, and be audacious in your asking. Thank you, Mr. Vudu. So finally, we go to the final question, Ms. Choma. So in your experience, how important is, and before I ask this question, I know you have already mentioned this question earlier in your response, where we spoke about seeking early legal counsel from the get-go. But as a point of emphasis, just for, some women who might not have, let me use this balance, gotten the memo yet, can you stress again how important it is to have access to tailored legal counsel early on? And what should they look out for in a legal advisor?
Okay, two questions, if I get you correctly.
Yes.
Okay, let me twist it a bit. Getting a lawyer or not getting a lawyer can be very catastrophic to a business. It would take you or, cause very severe consequences, leading to business failures, early disputes, and even, on top of my head, you would find yourself getting into contracts that you shouldn't get into, right? And I always like to approach my questions using practical examples based on our experiences. We have currently a dispute where two partners are in dispute concerning the ownership of a company. And what has happened here is because two friends, of course, and they just felt that they could take advantage of their friendship. And one partner who has the idea and made all the investments and made his other friend a shareholder because he felt the other friend has the influence and thought that he could leverage on the influence. And 5 years down the line, the influential friend never brought in any referral, brought in any business, and today they're in dispute concerning 30% shares. But the truth of the matter is, at the CAC, the other friend, the influential friend per se, has been listed as a shareholder. So you see, all of these things are very important when you have to consider a business without thinking of friendship and without being too biased about it. Now, one thing having a lawyer from the very beginning will do for you is that it boosts your investors. It sort of boosts your investors' confidence. It cannot be overemphasized. Any lender that wants to give you money, be it an angel or a shack, would want to be sure and wants to see what legal structure you have in place. Without this legal structure, they're not ready to do business. In fact, they withdraw. Another thing you would find that getting a early counsel will do for you is, I have said this earlier, is your regulatory compliance. We have seen in several instances where fintech companies, just because they skipped the failure to notify their regulators, they've been slammed huge penalties. And so if they had gotten a lawyer from the very beginning, they would have advised, right? You would find that getting a lawyer would also advise you on the tax implications and regimes concerning your business, right? And so it's a whole lot. If I want to begin to talk about the need for a lawyer in your businesses, you wouldn't be able to. It wouldn't be something that we might be able to finish up today, but it is very essential and very necessary that you get a lawyer just to save yourself from early disputes, legal disputes that are not necessary at a point where you do not call for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Madiagoro. Thank you for that. Early legal counsel is key to building a business that is sustainable and that can thrive.
And I don't think I addressed your second question. Your
What to
second
look out
question
for
was
in a legal advisor.
okay.
So maybe just
Pardon me, let me just quickly get
two
that
things
off.
to look out for.
The first thing to look out for your lawyer, if you want to get a lawyer, is to ensure that you get a lawyer that is sector specific, that has a sector specific knowledge apart from the general corporate and business law knowledge, right? Get a lawyer that is very sensitive, and you might want to ask me what it means by having a lawyer that is sensitive. Now, I will tell you, I'm a lawyer, that we always have a lot in our hands. So you want to find lawyers that is available for your business, that understands the business terrain, that understands how to save you money and time. And an example on top of my head is a case where you have tax avoidance and tax evasion. If you have a good lawyer, you'll find that a lawyer would advise you on how to save cost using loopholes or using some provisions in the law that can avoid you from paying taxes. So you find a lawyer that also has the connection within the sector that you play around. Lawyers that can connect you to the right set of people that can actually scale up your business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that is a good place to bring this webinar to a close. But before we sign out, we'd just like to take one or two final words from our panelists. This is a general, general one. If you'd like to give a final word to some, female founder on this call or entrepreneur who is seeking to, move from where she is, it's still Women's Month. So just as a form of encouragement, under 1 minute each, anyone. Any of our panelists can go for
I don't know if
this.
you can hear us. I think there's some tech issue. Can everyone?
Yes, we can
Yeah,
hear
I don't.
you.
Perfect, lovely. First of all, yeah, I wanted to say thank you, everyone, for hosting this amazing event. I think one of the most important things for women to do in the startup space is to connect with other women and all the people who are interested in founding with women. I just wanted to say that, in my opinion, one of the biggest gaps and opportunities for women founders right now is in technology, and we are still not stepping into them enough. One thing that one of the panelists mentioned here, Mopi, I think it's really important is we need not to only make more questions, right? We need to make the questions. We need to make better and faster questions. We need to actually get into the environment and own our personalities, own our businesses, and go out there and communicate our messages. Again, I think when we started Saito, I was a little scared of facing some African biases into investors. And can you hear me? I'm seeing that someone said that is losing. Oh, okay. No, there's some comments in here. Yeah. So basically, yeah, just wanted to mention that it's really important to get out there, to have the confidence that we mentioned here from all the founders, and to not be scared to reach out, connect. Even from example from our panelists today, if you want to connect and ask the question to a founder, go out, search for numbers, search for LinkedIn, just find your way out there to network and to actually run your business and own it. It's really important to gain that confidence. You will need it if you're going for a sector that's mainly dominated or run by men. And it's important to build it with other co-founders as well if you get to chat and network with them. So yeah, thank you so much for hosting this panel.
Thank you. Final
I want to
panelists, just one
say
more. Anyone?
Happy International Women's Month
I
to
can go.
everyone.
Can I?
I am a staunch supporter of female founders and now female investors because we need more women in the investing space, writing the checks. No check is too little because, there's strength in numbers. So really, I want to encourage us all to be able to go with those dreams and, wake up from the dream and make it a reality. And make sure that you push the needle in any shape or form within your value chain. I want to thank Wigwe and Partners for this very, very important discussion and discourse that we've had. We really have what it takes as women. It really is not war against our counterpart males. It's just making sure that our voices are heard, and we have a whole lot to provide when we come to the table. So put yourselves at that table, sit comfortably, and let everyone listen. All right.
Thank you very much, ma'am. For me, I will say that as soon as an idea leaves your head to the next person, even if that person is your relative, get a lawyer. A business and a lawyer are like two legs joined to the hip bones. So you must, as much as possible, ensure that whatever you do, get a lawyer. It could be your brother that is a lawyer, or your sister that is a lawyer. It's not such a very expensive approach, you know. So always ensure that you just have some legal counsel by your side that advise you on every step that you take towards your business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we draw the webinar to a close. I would like to, on behalf of the firm Wigwe and Partners, say a very big thank you, first of all, to everyone who participated in this webinar and joined and listened in, took notes. We believe that it has been enriching for you as it has been for us. And to our wonderful panelists, Tamara Lerner, Falake Akindele Koka, Mukbe Abudu, and Chomamadi Aguru. We are so grateful to you for your time and for sharing from your wealth of knowledge and experience. It's truly invaluable, and we couldn't have gotten it better anywhere else. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your day with us. Well, from Wigwe and Partners, till we meet next time, keep accelerating. Bye for now.